The laptop screen glowed in the dim bathroom light, and my hands wouldn't stop shaking as I stared at the message that just shattered my entire world. "It'll be like old times, Hendrix. Just us two, the ocean, and no obligations." I read it 3 times before my brain could even process what I was seeing. My fiancé, the man I was supposed to marry in 3 months, was planning a secret beach rendezvous with his ex-girlfriend while I was supposed to be 2 hours away at my cousin's bridal shower. I'm Indigo Mercer, 28 years old, and up until that Friday night in early June, I genuinely believed I was one of the lucky ones. I'd built a decent freelance graphic design business specializing in branding for local Tampa businesses. I had a modern downtown apartment with floor-to-ceiling windows, and I was engaged to Hendrix Flynn, a 30-year-old financial consultant with a smile that could sell ice to Eskimos, and a charm that made my parents adore him from day one. We'd been together for 3 years, engaged for 8 months, and I was deep into wedding planning mode. Centerpieces, seating charts, tasting menus. I was drowning in tulle and fairy lights and loving every second of it. Until I wasn't. It happened so casually, so stupidly. Hendrix had jumped in the shower after a long day at his consulting firm, and our shared laptop was sitting open on the kitchen counter where he'd been paying some bills. I wasn't snooping. I swear I wasn't. I just needed to pull up my Pinterest board to show my maid of honor some bouquet ideas. And when I touched the trackpad, the screen lit up to his Messages app instead of the browser. And there she was, Winter Caldwell. The name alone sent a cold spike through my chest. Hendrix had mentioned her exactly once in 3 years. Some girl he dated briefly at University of Florida. Nothing serious. Ancient history. He'd been so dismissive about it that I never thought to ask follow-up questions. But these messages weren't ancient history. They were recent. Very recent. I scrolled up with trembling fingers, my heart hammering so hard I could feel it in my throat. The conversations went back months. Not explicit. Nothing overtly sexual or romantic. But there was an intimacy there that made my stomach twist into knots. Inside jokes about that summer in Destin. References to our song. Memories from college parties I'd never heard about. And then, buried in the most recent exchange, the plan. Saturday, Clearwater Beach, 11 in the morning. I told Quincy I have a legal conference in Orlando, so I'm free all day. Winter had written on Wednesday. God, I've missed you. Missed you too, Hendrix had replied. Indigo will be in Orlando for her cousin's shower. Perfect timing. Perfect timing. Those 2 words hit me like a physical blow. I heard the shower shut off down the hall, and I barely had time to close the laptop and stumble to the couch before Hendrix emerged in sweatpants and a t-shirt, toweling his hair dry. He smiled at me, that easy, affectionate smile I'd fallen for 3 years ago, and asked if I wanted to order Thai food for dinner. I said yes. I don't even remember eating. That night, lying next to him in our bed while he scrolled through his phone, probably deleting messages I realized later, I made a decision. I wasn't going to confront him. Not yet. Because confronting him would give him time to spin a story, to gaslight me into thinking I was overreacting, to paint Winter as just an old friend and me as the paranoid, insecure fiancé. I'd seen enough Reddit threads and heard enough stories from friends to know how that script played out. No. I was going to be smarter than that. I was going to catch him in the act. The next morning, after Hendrix left for work, I did something I never imagined myself capable of. I created a fake Instagram account, beachvibes.fel, complete with stolen photos of Florida sunsets and generic captions about coastal living. Then I found Winter Caldwell's profile. She wasn't hard to find. She had that polished, curated aesthetic that screamed corporate lawyer trying to look effortlessly perfect. Photos of green juice and sunrise yoga sessions. Candid shots at trendy Miami restaurants. And yes, plenty of couple photos with a good-looking guy with kind eyes and an engineering firm polo shirt, Quincy Caldwell according to the tags. Her husband. Winter was married, had been for 4 years, based on the throwback anniversary posts. And judging by Quincy's captions, earnest declarations of love, grateful mentions of my beautiful wife, photos of them hiking and traveling and building what looked like a genuinely happy life together, He had no idea that his beautiful wife was planning secret beach days with her ex-boyfriend. I spent 2 full days stalking Winter's social media like it was my full-time job. I screenshotted everything. Her recent stories showed a suspicious pattern. Early morning gym check-ins in Tampa, not Miami where she supposedly lived and worked. Manicure appointments at a salon 15 minutes from our apartment. A tagged location at a Starbucks I passed every single day on my way to client meetings. She'd been in Tampa, multiple times, and Hendricks had never mentioned running into his old college friend. By Thursday night, I'd made my decision. I texted my cousin with an elaborate excuse about a client emergency, a total lie, but she was understanding. Then I did something that felt insane and justified in equal measure. I found Quincy Caldwell's work email through his LinkedIn profile and sent him a message from a burner email account I'd created. I kept it simple, straightforward, and backed up with evidence. Screenshots of the conversations I'd photographed before Hendricks could delete them. Timestamps. The Clearwater Beach plan. Everything. "I don't know you," I wrote, "but I think we're both being lied to. I'm Indigo Mercer, Hendricks Flynn's fiancé. I found these messages on his laptop. I think your wife is planning to meet him tomorrow at Clearwater Beach while we're both supposed to be elsewhere. I'm going to be there. I think you should be too." I hit send before I could second-guess myself, then immediately felt like I was going to throw up. Quincy responded 2 hours later. "I knew something was wrong," his email said, and I could feel the pain radiating through the screen. "She's been distant for months, always has last-minute work things. I asked her about it last month and she made me feel crazy for even questioning her. If this is real, I need to see it with my own eyes. What time should I be there?" Saturday morning arrived with that thick Florida humidity that makes your clothes stick to your skin before you even step outside. I woke up at 6, 2 hours before my alarm, my mind racing through every possible scenario. Hendricks was still asleep beside me, one arm thrown over his face, looking peaceful and innocent. I wondered how he could sleep so soundly knowing what he was about to do. I got up quietly and made coffee, my hands surprisingly steady now. The initial shock had burned away, leaving something colder and sharper in its place. I'd spent all of Friday planning, and now it was just a matter of execution. At 8:30, Hendricks emerged from the bedroom in board shorts and a linen shirt, beach bag already packed. He kissed my forehead, and asked what time I was leaving for Orlando. "Around 10, I lied smoothly, matching his casual tone. "Traffic shouldn't be too bad on a Saturday morning. What about you and your work friends? Where are you guys playing volleyball?" "Probably Clearwater," he said, not quite meeting my eyes as he poured himself coffee. "Rick mentioned wanting to try that spot near Pier 60. You know how he is about finding the perfect court? Rick. He'd even created a fake friend to cover his tracks. The detail of it, the casual specificity, made my chest tight with anger. "Sounds fun," I said, taking a sip of my coffee to hide my expression. "Don't forget sunscreen. You know how you burn." He smiled at me, squeezed my shoulder, and said, "What would I do without you?" The question hung in the air between us, and I thought, "You're about to find out." He left at 9:15, throwing his beach bag in his Jeep and driving off with a wave. I waited exactly 10 minutes, then grabbed my own bag, packed the night before with a beach towel, sunscreen, oversized sunglasses, a wide-brimmed hat I'd bought specifically for anonymity, and a one-piece swimsuit Hendricks had never seen. I'd even gone to Target yesterday and bought a pink and white striped beach umbrella still in its box in my trunk. The drive to Clearwater Beach took 40 minutes. The whole way there, my phone sat in the cup holder, Quincy's last message still glowing on the screen. "I'll be there. Blue and white umbrella. This is insane, but thank you for telling me." I parked in a public lot 3 blocks from Pier 60 and walked to the beach with my umbrella box tucked under my arm, feeling like I was in some kind of spy movie. The morning was already hot, the sand burning through my flip-flops. Families were setting up for the day, kids shrieking as they ran toward the water, the smell of coconut sunscreen thick in the air. I spotted Hendricks immediately. He'd chosen a spot about 50 yards from the main pier, close enough to the water to be prime real estate, but far enough from the crowds to feel semi-private. He was spreading out a blue beach blanket, his movements relaxed and unhurried. And then I saw her. Winter Caldwell in real life was somehow worse than her Instagram photos. Tall, toned, wearing a red bikini that probably cost more than my monthly car payment. Her blonde hair was pulled into a perfect ponytail, and even from a distance I could see the confidence in the way she moved, like someone who'd never been told no in her entire life. She walked up to Hendrix carrying 2 iced coffees from a nearby beach cafe, and the smile he gave her made my stomach drop. It was the same smile he used to give me in our early days. Genuine, warm, unguarded. She handed him a coffee and he said something that made her laugh, her hand landing on his bare shoulder in a touch that lasted 3 seconds too long to be casual. I positioned myself behind a beach rental kiosk about 30 yards away, setting up my phone to record while I assembled my umbrella. My hands were shaking again, but this time it was pure adrenaline. I watched them through my phone screen like it was a nature documentary about cheating scumbags in their natural habitat. They settled into beach chairs side by side, angled toward each other in that way that screamed intimacy. Winter pulled out sunscreen, and I actually watched, as Hendrix turned his back to her, and she applied it to his shoulders with slow, deliberate strokes. His eyes were closed, his expression content. Like this was normal. Like this was something they did all the time. This spot is perfect. Winter's voice carried over the sound of waves and nearby conversations. Remember that weekend in Destin when we found that hidden beach? Best weekend of my life, Hendrix said, and something inside me cracked. Because I'd asked him once, about a year into our relationship, what his best weekend ever was. And he'd told me about a guy's trip to Colorado. He'd looked me in the eyes and lied. I was so focused on them that I almost missed Quincy's arrival. He appeared at the edge of my peripheral vision, a tall guy in a polo shirt and khaki shorts, completely overdressed for the beach, carrying a blue and white striped umbrella and looking like he was walking toward his own execution. Our eyes met across the sand, and the pain in his face was so raw I had to look away. He set up his umbrella methodically, exactly where we'd planned, 3 meters to the left of Hendrix and Winter, close enough to observe but not so close as to be obvious. I did the same on the right side, my pink and white umbrella creating a strange, unintentional frame around the couple in the middle. They still hadn't noticed us. They were too wrapped up in each other, in their bubble of nostalgia and betrayal. Winter had her head tilted back, laughing at something Hendrix said, her hand resting on his forearm. He was leaning toward her, his body language open and engaged in a way he hadn't been with me in months. How long had I been losing him without even realizing it? I caught Quincy's eye again, and he gave me a slight nod. His jaw was clenched so tight I could see it from 15 feet away. He'd pulled out his phone and was also recording. His camera pointed directly at his wife. Then it happened. The moment I'd been simultaneously dreading and anticipating. Winter reached into her beach bag and pulled out her phone, but it slipped from her fingers and fell into the sand, bouncing once and landing right at the edge of my umbrella. I stared at it for a heartbeat. Then I leaned forward and picked it up. Winter looked over, her expression casual, expecting a stranger. "Oh, thank you so..." Her words died as our eyes met. I saw the exact moment recognition hit, her pupils dilating, color draining from her face, her mouth falling open in pure shock. She'd definitely seen photos of me on Hendrix's social media. Indigo? Hendrix's voice came from behind her, strangled and disbelieving. I stood there holding Winter's phone, wearing my oversized sunglasses and hat, probably looking like some kind of beach stalker, but I didn't care anymore. I was done caring. "Hi, Hendrix," I said quietly. "Funny running into you here. I thought you were playing volleyball with Rick." His face went white. Actually white. He opened his mouth, closed it, looked at Winter, looked back at me. "What are you..." "I can explain." "Explain what?" A male voice cut through the tension. Quincy had stood up from his umbrella and was walking toward us with slow, deliberate steps. Winter's head whipped around, and the sound she made, half gasp, half sob, would have been satisfying if the whole situation wasn't so devastating. "Quincy," she breathed. "What are you doing here?" He stopped a few feet away, his hands clenched at his sides. You told me you had a legal conference in Orlando, a mandatory Saturday session for that merger case you've been working on. His voice was eerily calm, which somehow made it worse. So I'm curious, Winter. When exactly did corporate law conferences start requiring bikinis and secret beach dates with ex-boyfriends? The beach seemed to go silent around us, though logically I knew it hadn't. Families were still playing in the surf, seagulls still crying overhead, music still drifting from someone's portable speaker. But in our little bubble of devastation, everything felt muted and surreal. Winter scrambled to her feet, her perfect ponytail suddenly looking ridiculous against the panic in her eyes. Quincy, I can explain. This isn't what it looks like. Really? Quincy's voice was still that terrible calm. Because it looks like you lied to your husband, drove 2 hours to meet your ex-boyfriend at a beach, and rubbed sunscreen on his back like you own him. So please, Winter, tell me what it actually is. Hendricks had stood up too, his board shorts suddenly seeming juvenile, his bare chest making him look vulnerable instead of attractive. He looked between me and Quincy like he was trying to solve an impossible equation. How did you two... Did you plan this? I finally took off my sunglasses, letting him see my face fully. You mean, did I coordinate with the husband of the woman you've been emotionally cheating with for months? Yes, Hendricks, I did. Because unlike you, when I discovered evidence of betrayal, I didn't just ignore it. I investigated. Months? Quincy's composure cracked slightly. He turned to Winter. Months? Winter's hands were shaking as she reached for her cover-up. It's not like that. We're just friends. We were just talking, catching up about old times. Friends don't lie about conferences. Quincy cut her off. Friends don't drive to different cities for secret beach days. Friends don't text about no obligations and like old times. Yeah, Winter, I saw the messages. Indigo sent me screenshots. That's when Hendricks turned on me, and I saw something ugly flash across his face. Not remorse, but anger that he'd been caught. You went through my laptop? You hacked my messages and sent them to a stranger? I didn't hack anything, I said, and my voice came out steadier than I felt. You left your laptop open. The messages were right there. And yes, I contacted Quincy because he deserved to know that his wife was lying to him. The same way I deserved to know that my fiancé was planning secret dates with his ex. A small crowd had started to notice our confrontation. A mom with 2 kids nearby grabbed their hands and moved them further down the beach. A teenage couple stopped pretending to look at their phones and started openly staring. Winter noticed too. Her lawyer instincts kicked in, and she lowered her voice to a harsh whisper. Can we please not do this here? We're making a scene. You made the scene, I said, surprised by how cold I sounded. I'm just revealing it. Hendricks ran his hands through his hair, a gesture I'd always found endearing that now just looked pathetic. Indigo, come on. Nothing physical happened. We were just talking. You're blowing this completely out of proportion. And that's when something clicked in my brain. Something I'd been turning over since Thursday night when I'd first sent that email to Quincy. You're right, I said slowly. Nothing physical happened. Yet. But it was going to, wasn't it? That's what like old times meant. That's what no obligations meant. Winter's face confirmed it before she could control her expression. A flash of guilt so obvious that even Hendricks winced. Oh my God, Quincy said quietly. He'd gone pale, his engineer's logical brain clearly piecing together timelines and patterns. The Miami trip last month. You said you had depositions all weekend. But you weren't in Miami, were you? Winter didn't answer, which was answer enough. Tampa, Quincy continued, his voice breaking slightly. You were in Tampa. With him. I looked at Hendricks, and pieces I hadn't even known were missing suddenly fell into place. That weekend you said you had that team-building retreat with your consulting firm. The one at the hotel downtown that you said was mandatory. You weren't at any retreat. Hendricks's silence was deafening. The betrayal expanded in my chest, bigger than I'd even imagined. This wasn't just emotional infidelity or nostalgic flirting. They'd already crossed lines. They'd already been physical. This beach meeting wasn't the beginning. It was a continuation. How long? I asked, and I barely recognized my own voice. How long have you actually been sleeping with her? We didn't. Hendricks started, But the lie fell apart before he could even finish it. Winter put her hand on his arm, an automatic gesture that revealed more than any confession could. Hendricks, don't. That touch. That proprietary, familiar touch. It told me everything. Quincy saw it too. He made a sound like he'd been punched. And when he spoke again, his calm had completely shattered. 4 years. I gave you 4 years of my life. I defended you to my family when they said you were too ambitious, too cold. I moved to Miami for your career. I turned down a position at Boeing in Seattle because you said you couldn't leave your firm. And the whole time you were... He couldn't even finish. Something had changed in me during those few minutes. The hurt was still there, sharp and deep, but it was becoming fuel instead of weight. I'd spent the last 2 days crying and doubting myself, wondering if I was overreacting, questioning whether I should give Hendricks a chance to explain. But standing there, watching him and Winter exchange guilty looks, seeing them instinctively draw together even in the middle of being caught, I realized I wasn't overreacting at all. I'd been underreacting for months. All those nights Hendricks came home late, claiming client dinners. All those weekends he was suddenly too tired for the hiking trips we used to love. The way he'd started keeping his phone face down on the table. The way he'd suggested we postpone the wedding from June to September, saying he wanted to give it the attention it deserved, when really he probably just wanted more time with Winter. I reached into my beach bag and pulled out my phone, opening the folder where I'd been saving evidence since Friday. Screenshots. Timestamps. GPS data from the location sharing we'd set up when we first moved in together. Data that showed Hendricks's phone repeatedly pinging near Winter's gym in Tampa, near restaurants in neighborhoods he'd claimed to never visit. I have everything documented, I said quietly, showing Quincy my phone. Dates, times, locations. Your lawyer wife is probably smart enough to know what this means in a divorce. Winter's face went from guilty to calculating in seconds. Are you threatening me? I'm informing you, I corrected. Florida is a no-fault state, but infidelity still matters in asset division when there's evidence of lying and financial deception. And I'm guessing all those business trips to Tampa weren't exactly approved firm expenses. Quincy was looking at my phone now, his expression hardening as he scrolled through months of evidence I'd compiled in just 2 days. She's been using our joint account for these trips, the hotels, the restaurants. I see the charges now. I just believed her when she said they were work expenses. Same, I said. Hendricks has been charging romantic dinners and hotel rooms to our shared credit card, claiming they were client meetings. Hendricks finally found his voice. This is insane. You're both acting crazy. We made a mistake, okay? But this whole ambush, this public humiliation... No, I interrupted. You made the mistake. Multiple mistakes. For months. We're just refusing to be gaslit about it anymore. A beach patrol officer had started walking toward us, probably responding to complaints about the disturbance. Winter noticed and grabbed her bag. I'm leaving. This is ridiculous. Go ahead, Quincy said. But don't come home. I'm changing the locks today. Your stuff will be at your parents' house in Coral Gables by Monday. She stared at him. You can't just kick me out of my own house. It's my house, Quincy said flatly. My name on the deed, my inheritance that paid the down payment. You wanted your name separate for professional liability reasons, remember? Guess that decision is finally paying off. I looked at Hendricks, this man I'd spent 3 years loving, and felt nothing but disappointment. The wedding's off, obviously. I'll have your stuff packed by tonight. You can pick it up tomorrow. Indigo, wait. No. I put my sunglasses back on, picked up my beach umbrella, and looked at Quincy. Want to get coffee? There's a place up the street. We should probably coordinate logistics. Quincy nodded, grabbed his umbrella, and together we walked away from Hendricks and Winter, leaving them standing in the sand with their lies exposed, and their secret relationship suddenly very, very public. As we left, I heard Hendricks call my name one more time, desperation finally creeping into his voice. I didn't look back. The coffee shop was one of those aggressively cheerful beachside places with turquoise walls and menu items named things like Sunshine Smoothie and Wave Rider Latte. The irony of sitting there discussing the implosion of our relationships while a perky barista sang along to reggae music wasn't lost on either of us. Quincy sat across from me, still looking shell-shocked, his iced coffee untouched. I can't believe we just did that. I can't believe they actually thought they'd get away with it, I countered, stirring my own drink mechanically. My hands had finally stopped shaking, replaced by an odd numbness that I suspected was just delayed shock. He laughed, a bitter, exhausted sound. Winter's always been so careful, so calculated. Every move planned 3 steps ahead. I should have known when she started being sloppy that something was wrong. She wanted to get caught, maybe. Or she just stopped caring enough to hide it properly. Over the next hour, we compared notes like detectives on a case. The timeline that emerged was damning. Hendricks and Winter had reconnected at a University of Florida alumni event in Tampa back in January, 7 months ago. What started as nostalgic catching up had quickly escalated to lunch meetings, then dinner meetings, then that first hotel room in February. February 14th, Quincy said, checking his credit card statements on his phone. Valentine's Day. She told me she had an emergency brief to file and couldn't make our dinner reservation. Charged $200 to a hotel in downtown Tampa that night. My stomach turned. Hendricks gave me chocolates and apologized for having to work late. Said his firm had a client crisis. I pulled up my own records. He charged dinner for 2 at that Italian place on Bayshore Boulevard. The one with the waterfront view that he always said was too expensive when I suggested it. We kept digging, our phones side by side on the table, and every new discovery felt like another small knife wound. March. A weekend trip Hendricks claimed was a bachelor party in Atlanta, but his location data showed he never left Florida. April. Winter's supposed legal conference in Orlando that was actually 3 days at a bed and breakfast in St. Augustine. May. Overlapping work obligations that were just them being together while their actual partners were left alone. I defended her, Quincy said quietly. My sister tried to warn me last month. Said Winter seemed different, distant. I told her she was being paranoid, that Winter was just stressed with work. I actually got angry at my sister for suggesting my wife could be unfaithful. I did the same thing, I admitted. My best friend said Hendricks seemed checked out at our engagement party. I made excuses for him. Said he was tired, overwhelmed with wedding planning. I convinced myself I was being a supportive partner by not demanding more attention. The barista brought us free cookies, probably sensing we needed some kind of comfort. We ate them in silence for a minute, processing. What happens now? Quincy finally asked. I'd been thinking about that since we walked away from the beach. Practically speaking, I kick Hendricks out of our apartment. It's in my name, thankfully. Cancel the wedding, which is going to be humiliating but necessary. Probably lose the deposits, but at least I'm not marrying a cheater. I paused. What about you? Divorce, he said flatly. I wasn't bluffing about changing the locks. The house is mine legally. I'll file papers Monday morning. Florida's got a 20-day waiting period for uncontested divorce, but something tells me Winter's going to make this complicated. She's a lawyer. She's a corporate lawyer who's about to learn that family law is a completely different beast. He smiled grimly. My cousin is one of the best divorce attorneys in Miami. She specializes in high-asset cases with infidelity. Winter's firm has a morality clause in their partnership track. I've heard her complain about it. If this gets messy enough, it could affect her career. Something shifted in the air between us. Not romantic. We were both too raw and broken for that, but something like solidarity. Like we'd stumbled into a foxhole together and were figuring out how to survive. I want to make sure everyone knows, I said suddenly. Not in a vindictive way, but I'm not protecting them anymore. When people ask why the wedding's canceled, I'm telling the truth. When his family asks what happened, I'm not making up some story about growing apart. Quincy nodded slowly. Winter's going to hate that. She's obsessed with image. Her Instagram, her professional reputation. It's all carefully curated. Public exposure would destroy her more than the divorce itself. We looked at each other, and I saw my own anger reflected in his eyes. I'm not saying we should blow up their lives on social media, Quincy said carefully. But I'm also not saying we should lie to protect their reputations. I pulled out my phone and opened Facebook. My engagement announcement from 8 months ago had 300 likes. Our relationship had been public. Our breakup would be too. I'm posting the truth. Just facts, no drama. The wedding is canceled due to infidelity. Thank you to everyone who already sent gifts. I'll be returning them. I'm okay and moving forward. Do it, Quincy said. I'll do the same. No details, no naming names. Just the truth. We posted simultaneously. Within minutes, my phone started buzzing with messages. Concerned friends, shocked family members. And then, unexpectedly, other messages started coming in. A woman I'd met twice at Hendrix's work events. I'm so sorry. I suspected something was going on with him and someone but didn't know how to tell you. A former colleague of Winter's. Finally, someone said it. She's been inappropriate with married partners at the firm for years. A friend from college. Winter did this to her last boyfriend, too. Cheated with his roommate. I wish I'd warned you, Quincy. The floodgates had opened. Apparently, Hendrix and Winter had left a trail of red flags that people had noticed but never mentioned. The classic case of everyone knowing except the partners being betrayed. My phone rang. Hendrix. I declined it. He called again. Declined again. Then came the texts. You're being insane. We need to talk about this like adults. I can't believe you're making this public. You're going to regret humiliating me like this. That last message made me laugh out loud. Quincy looked up from his own phone, presumably dealing with similar messages from Winter, and raised an eyebrow. Hendrix says I'm going to regret humiliating him, I said. Like I'm the one who cheated. Winter's threatening to sue me for defamation, Quincy said tiredly. I didn't even name her in my post. I just said my marriage ended due to infidelity. But apparently that's defamatory because it might hurt her career. Let her try, I said. Truth is an absolute defense against defamation. And we have evidence. Over the next 3 hours, we sat in that coffee shop and systematically dismantled the life we'd thought we were building with our partners. I canceled my wedding venue, losing the deposit but gaining peace of mind. Quincy called a locksmith. We both called our respective attorneys. I contacted our landlord about removing Hendrix from the lease. Quincy sent Winter's parents a carefully worded message about having their daughter's belongings ready for pickup. The practical tasks helped. They gave us something to focus on besides the emotional devastation. By late afternoon, we'd moved to a bench on the beach, different from where we'd confronted our cheating partners, but same general area. The sun was starting its descent toward the horizon, painting the sky in shades of orange and pink. Thank you, Quincy said suddenly, for contacting me, for not just confronting them alone. I know it was risky reaching out to a stranger. Thank you for believing me, I replied. You could have thought I was some crazy ex trying to cause problems. The evidence was pretty solid. He smiled slightly. Also, I think I knew, deep down. I just convinced myself I was paranoid. Having someone else confirm it gave me permission to trust my gut. My phone buzzed again. This time it was my mom, who'd seen the Facebook post. I answered and spent 20 minutes assuring her I was okay. Yes, the wedding was really canceled. No, I didn't want to talk about it in detail yet. She offered to fly down from North Carolina. I told her to wait a few days. When I hung up, Quincy was looking at me with something like admiration. You're handling this really well. I'm handling it, I corrected. I don't know about well. I keep expecting to have a complete breakdown, but it's like I'm running on adrenaline and anger right now. The breakdown will come later. Same, he admitted. I think I'm in shock. 4 years of marriage, gone in one Saturday morning. We sat in comfortable silence, watching strangers play in the surf. Normal people having normal beach days, unaware of the drama that had unfolded here hours earlier. Can I ask you something? Quincy said eventually. What made you suspect? Like, what was the specific moment you knew something was wrong? I thought about it. It wasn't one moment. It was a pattern. Little things that didn't add up. Him being emotionally distant but claiming nothing was wrong. Working late but never having concrete details about projects. And then finding those messages was just confirmation of what I already felt but was too scared to admit. He nodded. Winter stopped wanting to have sex. Like, completely. 3 months with excuses about being tired, stressed, headaches. I thought maybe she was having health issues. Turns out she was just getting it elsewhere. The bluntness of it made me wince. Hendricks did the opposite, suddenly wanted to try new things, different positions. At the time, I thought we were reconnecting. Now I realize he was probably just practicing what he was doing with Winter. That's disgusting. Yeah. Another silence. This one heavier. The sun sank lower. The beach started clearing out as families packed up for the day. I don't want to be bitter, I said quietly. I don't want this to turn me into someone who doesn't trust people or doesn't believe in love. But right now, I'm just so angry. Be angry, Quincy said. We've earned it. 6 months passed before I could look at that day on Clearwater Beach without my chest tightening. 6 months of therapy, of crying in the shower, of blocking Hendrix's number after his 100th attempt to explain. 6 months of rebuilding a life I'd thought was already built. The wedding cancellation cost me $4,000 in non-refundable deposits, worth every penny. Hendrix tried to get back into our apartment 3 times before finally accepting it was over. The last time, he showed up drunk at 2 a.m, banging on the door and shouting about how I'd ruined his life by overreacting. My neighbor called the cops. That was the last I heard from him directly. Through mutual friends, I learned he and Winter tried to make a real relationship work. Apparently, when you remove the thrill of sneaking around and the validation of being chosen over someone else, all you're left with is 2 people who hurt the partners they supposedly loved. They lasted 6 weeks before Winter ended it, citing his commitment issues. The irony was almost funny. Almost. Winter's career took a hit exactly like Quincy predicted. Someone at her firm, probably a paralegal who'd seen too much, leaked information about her using company resources for personal affairs. The partnership track she'd been so carefully climbing got indefinitely postponed. She's still at the firm, but the trajectory changed. Sometimes the consequences are subtle, but permanent. Quincy and I stayed in touch through the divorce proceedings. What started as strategic coordination evolved into genuine friendship. We understood each other in a way that only people who've been betrayed by the same lie can understand. He was there the day I finalized canceling the wedding venue. I was there when his divorce was finalized. Florida's 20-day waiting period turned into 4 months of Winter contesting every single asset. But eventually, even she couldn't fight the prenup her own lawyer had drafted. We started meeting for coffee every few weeks. Then every week. Then we were texting about random things. A funny meme, a complaint about work, a restaurant recommendation. It was easy and uncomplicated in a way that felt revolutionary after the minefield of my relationship with Hendrix. I'm not ready for anything romantic, I told him one evening about 3 months after that beach confrontation. We were having dinner at a tapas place in Tampa's Hyde Park neighborhood, and the conversation had drifted toward what we both wanted in future relationships. Neither am I, he said, looking relieved. But I like this, whatever this is. No expectations, no games, just 2 people who've earned the right to be honest with each other. By month 5, whatever this is, had evolved. We took a road trip to St. Augustine, reclaiming the city where Winter and Hendrix had spent one of their secret weekends. We walked the old fort, ate overpriced ice cream on the waterfront, and talked about everything except our exes. For the first time since finding those messages on Hendrix's laptop, I felt genuinely happy instead of just pretending to be okay. Is it weird that we ended up here? I asked Quincy, as we watched the sunset over the Bridge of Lions. He considered it. Maybe. But also, maybe it's the universe's way of giving us something good from something terrible. We met because of the worst thing that happened to us. Doesn't mean what we're building now is tainted by that. I thought about that a lot over the following weeks. About how the worst betrayal of my life had led me to someone who understood loyalty because he'd also had it broken. Someone who valued honesty because he knew the destruction of lies. Someone who chose me deliberately instead of letting a relationship happen by default or inertia. A year after that Saturday on Clearwater Beach, Quincy and I went back. Same beach, different context. We set up our umbrella, just one this time, navy blue with white anchors, and spent the day reading books and swimming and being the kind of boringly happy couple I'd once thought Hendrix and I were. As the sun started setting, I pulled out my phone and took a photo. Us, the umbrella, the ocean behind us. Posted it to Instagram with a simple caption. Sometimes the best things come from the worst situations. Grateful for second chances and honest love. My phone buzzed almost immediately. My mom sending heart emojis. My best friend commenting, "You deserve this." Quincy's sister, "So happy for you both." And then, surprisingly, a message request from someone I'd never expected to hear from. Winter. "I'm glad you're happy. I'm sorry for everything. I've been in therapy and I'm finally understanding how much damage I caused. You deserved better. Quincy deserved better. I hope you can forgive me someday, but I understand if you can't." I showed Quincy. He read it, handed back my phone, and shrugged. That's progress for her, I guess. Doesn't change anything, but at least she's finally being honest. I deleted the message without responding. Forgiveness might come someday, but it wasn't required for my healing. I'd already moved on. Later that evening, as we packed up our beach gear and walked back to the car, Quincy reached for my hand. Such a simple gesture, but it felt monumental. Chosen, deliberate, honest. "Thank you," I said. "For what?" "For being someone who shows up, who tells the truth, who doesn't make me question reality or doubt my instincts. For being proof that not everyone lies." He squeezed my hand. "Right back at you." The drive home took us past the coffee shop where we'd first sat together, shell-shocked and angry, dismantling our old lives. I didn't point it out, but I noticed Quincy glance at it too. So much had changed since that day. We'd both lost something we thought we wanted and found something we actually needed. Partners who chose us first, every single time. I used to think the worst day of my life was finding those messages on Hendrix's laptop. Now I understand it was actually the beginning of my real life. The one where I don't settle, where I trust my gut, where I demand to be chosen, not just convenient. Some betrayals break you. Others break you open. The difference is what you build with the pieces.
And that wraps up today's story. Now we want to hear from you. Where are you watching from? Drop your city or country in the comments, and let's see how far these stories reach. If this story moved you or gave you chills, give it a like, share, and subscribe for more powerful stories. One last thing, rate the story from 1 to 10 in the comments. Your feedback helps us bring you even better ones next time. Thanks for watching. We appreciate you being part of this storytelling journey.